to our YouTube channel Forensic Science India. Today I am back here again with a new topic, that is fingerprint, and I hope that my previous videos on the topic document examination have given you some clear idea related to the topic, and I hope that you all understand about that. So in today's video I will be discussing fingerprint. I am not elaborating any aspect of fingerprint today. Today is just an introductory part. In my upcoming videos, I will be discussing each and every aspect of fingerprint in detail. So let's started. So today the topic of discussion are fingerprint and introduction, how are ridges formed on the skin, history of fingerprints and fundamental principle of fingerprints. So let's get started. So fingerprint. Here I am discussing just an introduction, or I can say definition of fingerprint. So fingerprint is an impression left by the friction ridges of a human finger. The recovery of partial fingerprint from a crime scene is an important method of forensic science. Moisture and grease on a finger result in fingerprints on surface such as glass or metal. So fingerprint is an impression left by the friction ridges of human finger. Okay, so there are some ridges on our fingertips that are known as friction ridges, and fingerprint in forensic science, how we are getting the fingerprints. There are so many fingerprints, there are types of fingerprints that are recovered by our fingerprint experts on the crime scene, and that fingerprints types will be discussed in the upcoming videos. So moisture and grease on finger result in fingerprint on surface such as glass and metal. So our fingerprint get impressed on various surfaces and an impression is formed on the surface. So that impressions are known as fingerprint impressions. So how ridges formed on the skin? So in previous slide you have seen friction ridges. So what are ridges? How they are formed? During the embryonic development of the fetus, ridges are formed due to the amount of pressure exerted in different direction inside the womb. So ridges develop during intrauterine development. So for today only, just remember that ridges are formed due to the amount of pressure exerted in different direction inside the womb. So in my upcoming videos, I will be describing ridges, types of ridges in detail. So here you can see a diagram also, a cross section of the ridge. Here you can see oil gland, follicle nerve, fatty tissue, dermis, epidermis, sweat gland. Now history of fingerprints. Evidence exists that the Chinese used the fingerprint to sign legal documents as far back as 3000 years ago. However, whether this practice was performed for ceremonial custom or as a means of personal identity remains a point of conjecture lost to history. So as per the details are concerned, it was mentioned that the Chinese are the first and the foremost user of fingerprints. But as they use that fingerprint for detection of crime or some person or some other thing is not very clear. Here it is mentioned that the practice was performed for ceremonial custom or as a means of personal identity. Remains a point of conjecture. So the thing is very unclear that it is performed for ceremonial custom or for personal identity. So Marcello Malpighi, he noted the presence of fingerprints, but he didn't make any connection to personal identification. So here you can see another scientist who noted the presence of fingerprint, but he didn't make any connection to personal identification. So he does not use that a fingerprint for personal identification. Then another scientist, John Purkinje, professor of anatomy, first person to recognize that fingerprints could be classified into 9 major groups. William Herschel, an English civil servant stationed in India, started the practice of requiring natives to sign their contracts with the imprints of the right hand that has been pressed against the stamp pad. So William Herschel has now used fingerprints for practical use, that is for signing the contracts. By what? By using a stamp pad. Henry Forbes, 1880, A Scottish physician published an article in the journal Nature that suggested that the uniqueness of fingerprint could be used to identify someone. So in the previous slides, no scientist or person have published anything about fingerprint. But here for the first time, Henry Falls, a Scottish physician, published an article in the journal Nature that suggested the uniqueness of fingerprint to identify someone. Then comes Francis Galton, 1890s. He published the first book on fingerprint. So he is the first person to publish a book on fingerprint. Then Johann Verschis developed a fingerprint classification system that is still used today in South America. So he developed a fingerprint classification system that is still in use in South America. And then comes Sir Edward Henry. He developed the Henry fingerprint classification system, which has been adopted in US and Europe. So he played a very crucial. So Henry fingerprint classification system is still in use and by far the successful classification system done by any scientist. So here it is just a brief discussion of the contribution of scientists in the field of fingerprints. Now, fundamental principle of fingerprints. So there are some fundamental principles regarding fingerprints. So let's see them one by one. A fingerprint is an individual characteristics. No two fingerprints have yet been found to possess the same rich characteristics. So no two person have same fingerprint. They may have the same DNA in case of identical twins, but in case of identical twins also they don't have same fingerprint. So here you can see how fingerprint play a very crucial role in identification of personal identity. A fingerprint will remain unchanged during an individual's lifetime. So fingerprint will never change. Whether you become an elder person, an older person, your fingerprint will remain just the same throughout your lifetime. Fingerprint have journal-rich patterns that permits them to be systematically classified. So they have some rich patterns, journal-rich patterns that permit them to be systematically classified. So there are various rich patterns like ridge ending, bifurcations, etc. that I will be discussing in my upcoming videos. And the fourth one is all the fingerprint patterns are divided into three major classes on the basis of their general pattern, that is arch, whorls and loops. So these are the three major classification of fingerprints. Again, these classification in detail will be discussed in my upcoming videos. So that's all for today. Thank you so much and I hope that you like this video, and if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel, share with your friends also and kindly support us. Thank you so much for watching the video.